Socrates believed that the soul was the house of all knowledge, and that our soul's duty was kind of to be this vessel in which we held like all universal truths and understandings, and that education was really the means of us remembering what our soul already knows as true. He thought that the soul was like this eternal being that was housed within us, and it was an extension of like everything from the world of ideals, and that we're just remembering all these different things about like life and understanding. I don't necessarily think the soul is that. And I don't really think I knew what a soul was or was interested in my soul until probably 2-3 years ago. And I started being really mindful of my behavior and my thoughts and really what made me feel fulfilled. So we've been talking about transformation and change and growth and development. And part of that has been really attending to and nurturing my soul. So today I wanted to talk about that and kind of elevate this conversation of like, what is the soul? How do we nurture it? How do we tap into it? Does everyone have a soul? I know it's kind of a silly question. I'm sure everyone has a soul, but hopefully we can get some discourse down about like, what is your soul? What is my soul? And how can we nourish them? This is Coffee and Catastrophe with Brent and Gabi.
Yeah. I mean, I think the whole thing with the soul first started, there was this like old ass like sorcerer. His name was Shang Tsung. And what he would do is there was like this organized tournament he would have, and what he would do is like the combatants, like they would like the loser died, and he would actually like take their soul, and he actually had the ability to transform into them. And that was until this one guy named Liu Kang came along. I can't. It's all fucking Mortal Kombat.
Oh shit! Fuck you. I'm like, what is this? I've never heard of this before. It's fucking Mortal Kombat.
No, but like that's like how I was first introduced to it. It was like Mortal Kombat. So Shang Tsung, he was a sorcerer, and basically, when you die, he would just take your soul. So it was just like this spiritual, like an externalized spiritual being. So in the movie, like he would just put his hand over your heart, and then like, you know, your essence would be like kind of sucked out of it. And then, you know, at the end of the movie spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it in the past 25 years.
I honestly, I saw 15 to 20 minutes of it like in December, like a few months ago, because I went to Kuma's Corner and it was playing on like the TVs. That's the only thing I've seen of it, but continue.
Yeah, so like at the end, like Liu Kang kills Shang Tsung, and then like as soon as Shang Tsung dies, he withers like away instantly into a hollow skeleton, and then like all of the souls he ever stole escape his body, and like Liu Kang's reconnected with his brother, I think Wang, I can't remember his name, but Wang Kang, I don't know. But so basically, but like it's like the kind of like in the movie, it's, you know, they're like silhouetted with blue light and they're kind of see-through.
That sounds like some like Scientologist bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then like he like talks to Liu Kang. He's like, "Hey, it's all right, brother. Thanks." And then they like touch hands one more time. And
oh my God.
He flies to the sky. And then,
God.
You know, then like they all look back at Liu Kang, and Liu Kang's like, "Let's go home." And then, you know, when they're walking outside, like the storm in the sky shows up, and then, you know, the fucking, you know, they're like, this huge cloud forms. You're like, "What's that?" And Rain's like, "The Emperor." And then like Shao Kahn's like, "You weak, pathetic fools, I've come for your souls." And then like Raiden's like electricity shoots out of his eye, like, "I don't think so." And that was the end of the movie.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I also have like no experience playing Mortal Kombat. Like did they used to have an arcade version of it?
Yeah, it originally came out, and I think that game was the reason why they have a video game rating system now, because before, in the early 90s, there was no ratings on games. And then in that game, you just like rip out someone's spine, their heart, like just blood everywhere.
Like, so there was this like Mexican restaurant in my hometown that had Street Fighter or Street Fighter 2, and that was my jam, because all you had to do was button mash pretty much. Or like, I wasn't very skilled or adept. I was also like 7. And so I think also our local movie theater had Mortal Kombat, and so I played that a few times. But like, again, my brother like hugged all the video games in our house, so like I like have zero experience. So when you started talking like so earnestly, I was like, oh, like what is, I've never heard, and then, oh fuck, it's a video game.
Yeah, I mean, that's a subject I'm not as well versed on, like in terms of like the soul and the history. Like, oh yeah, Thich Nhat Hanh said the way to living a happy life is through the soul and Shang Tsung. No, I can't.
Yeah, no. But, the way I first heard about souls was my mom's pretty religious, like in terms of like, we were pretty consistent about going to church until I was about, well, I had to go through fucking confirmation. So probably till about like 13, like I didn't really like, I had to go to service to like appease my mom, but I didn't really like it. And I remember like learning about like in church, like they always talk about like the soul and how like when we die, our souls go to Jesus and and I was raised like in a Methodist church, although my mom's Baptist, and my dad was raised Catholic, although poorly because he is a complete atheist. So like I remember hearing what a soul was, but I had no conception of other than what, like to be like if you're a good person, your soul goes to Jesus and you live forever. Like I had no understanding beyond that. And then of course, like I think what naturally happens with a lot of kids brought up in church that don't believe in it like I did, I just fucking rebelled against that shit and was like 13 and like reading up on like Wicca and paganism because I'm like, fuck this, fuck church, fuck God, like done. Although I did get confirmed, I think as I've told this story previously, my mom threatened to kick me out if I at 13 if I didn't get confirmed. So that was so I got confirmed because I wanted to live in my house because I was 13, and so I just again didn't like care about like what a soul fucking is and thought it was like hippy dippy bullshit. And then it wasn't until like probably I started taking philosophy in college that like the idea of the soul like returned to my like experience in my life. And the first philosophy class I took was metaphysics, which is all about like what is the soul and everything like beyond the physical realm, and like big concepts like truth and beauty and understanding. And like we talked about like the cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am, like all that shit. So I don't think I even like really cared about like what it means to like nurture this part of me. And I guess my understanding now is like, I think that every person has like a non-physical part of them. Like, again, like you said, like their essence that like is this thing that you were born with and is unique to you. And that like, you know, that once we die, like that part of us is like released back, but I don't know where it goes from there. Like, I don't know if it goes into somebody else's body or like, you know, it's for reincarnation, or if it just goes to like, you know, into the sky and chills out for a millennia. Like, I have no idea. But I think that like every person does have this like essence about them and this like multifaceted nature that is unique to them, that if you don't like find time to nurture, that you're kind of missing out on something. And I think it's just all goes back to deeper understanding of self.
Yeah, and it's still part of our lexicon, like part of our vocabulary. We use soul the most as a metaphor. So for instance, like especially in Hollywood, you could sell your soul to the devil.
Yeah, true.
And that usually means that like you sell out, like, or like musicians, you know, they start out honestly and earnestly, and then they sell their soul to the quote unquote devil who just wants to exploit them for money. So it's like a age-old tale. It's even kind of retold in A Star Is Born in the Lady Gaga version.
Really?
Yeah. So she starts off as like just kind of like, she's literally like working at a restaurant. Mm-hmm. And she's got shit going on. Mm-hmm. And then Bradley Cooper like discovers her at a drag bar, and she's singing like a Edith Piaf song beautifully.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So then like she like, you know, starts touring with them and knows all that shit. And then like she starts getting poisoned by the industry and they're taking advantage of her and all that shit. But it's still the thematic elements are there, and it's usually paired soul with money. It's rare that like I've seen it existentially like Mortal Kombat, where it's just like good versus evil, like with souls. But it's always like, you know, money has just kind of been introduced to it. Like whenever I hear about the concept of the soul, at least like within the past 10 years or so. Yeah.
And I think that you're right, because it's interesting, your example with like A Star Is Born, that movie, like what she is selling, her soul is like her talent, her like who she is as like an artist. That's what she's like selling basically to like get money and whatnot. I guess I don't know if I think of the soul in terms of like good, evil, morality, benevolent stuff. Like I do think that largely people are good in the interior or want to be good, but I don't think that's everybody. And like I don't know, moralizing the soul is like, I don't know, like I guess there are people who are evil and maybe I guess they have an evil soul by extension, but like I don't know, I just never think about that. I really do think of it in terms of like your essence of like who you really are on the inside, and like how do you like make that a part of yourself that you are consistently like accessing and like making yourself feel good. And like, do you think then a soul is linked to purpose?
I think so, because there's like, all right, like when you think of like heart, body, mind, spirit, soul, it's not just like the physical parts of you. So you say like, yeah, my heart is broken. It's like, yeah, your shit's still pumping blood through your body. And because someone says they didn't love you anymore, like it's not like that organ's fucked up. It's just like it's this greater metaphor for a part of your being. And I think perhaps like your soul is your truest form. And, you know, now that I think about it, that we're having this conversation, the Marvel movies kind of exemplify like this concept of the soul, not necessarily through money, but just through like, you know, this sort of like powerful thing, especially with Thanos.
Yeah.
Have you seen Infinity War?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Infinity War, basically, like, Thanos is so hell-bent on, you know, like, wiping out literally half of existence to restore balance to it. So he becomes so corrupted by, like, completing the Infinity Gauntlet. And, like, just, like, with a snap of his fingers, like, his soul is compromised.
Yeah.
And everyone's just trying to, like, stop him from, like, hey, dude, this is not fucking cool, Thanos. Hey, man, look, you gotta slow down. Yeah, I'm Tony Stark. You can't fucking do that, Thanos. I mean, if you kill Pepper Potts, I'm gonna have to come after you with my money, billionaires. Yeah, just don't fucking snap your fingers there, Thanos. And then Hulk is all like, no, God damn it, son of a bitch. And then he's freaking out. And but that means he found a greater purpose to get, I think it was the Tesseract or like one of the cubes. Mm-hmm. He went to like this, like one part of, I can't remember where it was, but he met up with like the Red Skull. Yeah,
I totally remember that.
Yeah, and he was like covered in like a shadowy draped like figure, and he was just like, yeah, you gotta do this. And then, you know, he was so dedicated that he killed, like, that Thanos killed his own daughter, mm-hmm. you know, in order to get the cube. Every time, like, he did something, like, every time he completed a piece of the Infinity Gauntlet, mm-hmm. he compromised a part of his soul. Like, the guy literally did genocide. Mm-hmm. He literally killed his family. Like, he just wiped out, like, every aspect of, like, destruction. And he wiped out pretty much, like towards the end of the movie, like the last piece was from Vision's forehead. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Vision and the Scarlet Witch had this like relationship going.
Yeah.
So he literally had to compromise somebody else's love. Yeah. To like destroy his own soul.
Yeah. So it's almost like, so you're almost seeing like he had this mission, but the price of the mission is sacrificing his soul. Am I correct?
Yes.
So like in that, from that like definition or this example, like we can extrapolate that like the soul is kind of a moral element in terms of like it doesn't want to cause harm, it doesn't want to cause tragedy, and that when we do intentionally cause harm, we sacrifice part of ourselves. And so I guess then we're also saying the soul is like all benevolent, which is probably why like in Christianity and Catholicism people think that our souls, because God is all good, all powerful, whatever, like our souls are an extension of God in Christianity because they are the all benevolent parts of us. So I guess there is morality to it. Although, like, again, when I think of like my soul, maybe I'm just like, I think that there's like more to it than like being a good person. Like maybe that's like the baseline model of everyone's soul is like benevolence and being good to like other people. And then we like, you know, build, you know, we have all these modifications and like things that we add on to that like base model. So, I talked to you before we started recording that I just heard of this like cool, concept. I think the creator's name is Jennifer Snow, and she lives in Los Angeles, and she does like a lot of guided meditation stuff. She's got 2 meditation books out, which are really cool. Not that I've like read them, but they just sound like really cool if you're like interested in getting into meditation. But she created this concept called like a soul collage deck, and it's very similar to like tarot cards or an oracle deck in that it's like a stack of cards that you can pull from, do a spread, or like multiple cards you can pull at one time to kind of infer like what's going on in your life and prompt like reflection. And you know, I guess she kind of uses it as a form of divination in that like she'll pull one each day that it kind of represents like what she needs to keep in mind during that specific day. But the really cool thing is like the soul collage isn't something that you buy. Like it's not like a tarot deck that you buy and it's complete. Rather, it's this cool reflective process of thinking about like what your soul is and all the parts of it, and you make a card that represents each part of like your soul. So like she was giving examples of like, you know, you can put archetypes in there that you want to be, or you know, people that you, or figures you aspire to be. It could also be like animal guide spirits, as she called them, or like other types of spirit guides, angels, if you're into that stuff. But she also really emphasized that you have to also put in cards that represent your, as she called it, shadow side, which isn't necessarily like your evil side or your bad side, just the parts of yourself that could be beneficial but have to be balanced. Like, so the example she gave, and I'm taking all of these words from, she was on an episode of like the Gala Darling show, and Gala Darling is like this tarot reader, but she's also into like manifestation. And like, again, I don't know how much of like these things that I like really, really think, it's not like I live and die by them, like things like tarot decks or, you know, oracle decks, or like, but I think it's like really cool because tarot is kind of like a way to like really reflect about what's going on, especially if you do like a spread. Like there's a full moon spread that you can do where it's like 4 cards and each represents a specific thing, like what you're releasing, like what you need to pay attention to, like a piece of advice for you. And it's just kind of, and like the seeds you're planting or the things you're trying to do this month. And I guess it's just like a really cool way to like reflect and think about like, how am I doing? Like what's going really well in my life and where do I like want to improve? So she really encourages like people to create this like oracle deck, this soul collage that they can like pull from and like continue to like add to. And like when they need guidance, they can like, you know, pull a card and see like which part of themselves should they like, you know, bring out that day. And it's really cool because it's so individualized. And basically she said once you decide like what you want, you know, one card to be, you design the card yourself, you print it out, you make it yourself. So it's really individualized. And she almost said it's like, you know, with tarot cards, if like I've had you pull like tarot cards before and we've like looked up the meaning, and like a tarot deck you like share with people, and it's like, but like the soul collage and like deck you make based on you. And I thought that was just really cool, and it got me to thinking about how like souls and our essence and our being are like multifaceted, and like if I was going to make a deck, what would that look like? And it was just really cool. Would you say that perhaps a soul like at least within its concept, whether inside or outside of religion, its baseline is sparked by some sort of divinity? Yeah, probably. I think for some people, yes. So like going back to the Mortal Kombat example, there's no way that any of the souls that Shang Tsung steals can like go to heaven or like, you know, find peace in the afterlife, because he like took all that within himself. So what he's really doing is he's taking all of the divinity away from humanity. So like he's acting as God, right? Yeah, same thing like with Thanos. Like, and I think just the act that he got the Infinity Gauntlet, and literally with like the spark of divinity within us all can be taken away literally by a snap of the fingers. And that's exactly what happened. Like he wiped out half of the entire universe. It's literally like in both examples from those like video game and movie. Well, I guess Mortal Kombat's a movie too, but like we have 2 characters playing God. And that's like that's like frowned upon. Like because it's so much destruction when figures play God and take away, you know, the essence of a person and like kill them. And it's also too because like when you think about it, what we're saying too is like the soul, it's very much like that. Like I think it was Socrates who believed, I think it's like Socrates or Plato, I can't remember which, but like basically the notion that like once the physical body dies, the soul, which is this like ethereal, non-physical thing, like goes and it's no longer housed within the soul, and it like it goes somewhere, it does something depending on what group of people you listen to and believe. Like, so it's also too because it's like on the one hand it's like the soul is linked to mortality, it is also linked to morality, and it's also like who you are. And yeah, it's just so interesting. It's like, would you agree that the soul, like a baseline definition is like the soul is the essence of a person, or does that need to be expanded upon?
Based on a loose definition, I would just say, okay, so a soul at the very baseline it's an essence of humanity that is sparked by divinity. However, it's also, whenever I think of soul, I think of the future. I don't think of like the past. So like when we say like, oh yeah, like the soul of the project or the soul of the 1970s, like it's sort of like this greater idea that's extracted from it. So like there's not like a soul that you could just like Shang Tsung out of like a decade. But like when you like,
I love how you made Shang Tsung a verb.
Yeah. So like when you Shang Tsung the shit out of the 70s, what you're really doing is like, okay, like what's like the motive? What's like the metaphor that's being extracted out? And I think like, kind of like the soul is like when you get all the people together and you extract out what it means to be a human being, you kind of get the soul. So even though like we have our own like individual sense of soul, like for instance, like I think what my soul is comedy. My soul is to make people laugh. And, that's just kind of like when I felt that was taken away from me, I felt like I was dying.
Yeah.
So I think what separates us from animals, I mean, like not to say animals don't have souls, but I think like what I'm trying to say is that we're better because we're at least able to make conscious choices of what to do with good and evil. Well,
and especially beyond it's like with an animal, it's just instinct. I don't think there's any morality in animals because they just work off of instinct. Now, of course, we know that my favorite like weird subject is like animals that go on killing rampages, killing humans, like favorite subject. And a part of me like almost thinks, I don't really think this, but like, wouldn't it be so cool if like the reason these animals, like I'm thinking of like the Savo lions that killed like all these railroad workers in like Africa, like they're doing it as a means of like nature fighting back against humanity and its technology and bullshit. Like I love that idea, but I really don't, at the end of the day, don't think that like animals are really compelled by like this like morality complex that like we are. Like you said, like Thanos snaps his fingers and destroys half the population and sacrifices his soul basically because he's playing God and he's taking away other people's souls, which makes him this like, devious figure. Same with Shang Tsung. Is that his name? Shang Tsung?
Shang Tsung.
Shang Tsung. So I think that too, like, I think again, everyone's like person in essence is so multifaceted that I think maybe the only link is maybe if everyone is connected by like being good like on the inside and like motivated by goodness. I don't think everyone's motivated by goodness, or I think that maybe there's experiences that they have that like make them stop being motivated by goodness. Instead, they're motivated by like greed or I don't know, other bad things or whatever. So you mentioned that like you think a part of your soul is like comedian or like comedy. What are the other parts of your soul if you had to articulate them?
That's definitely the most prevalent, and I see it as let's just say if we had layers, or if let's just say that we had
like ogres, like onions. That's a Shrek reference.
Nah, I haven't seen Shrek in like 15 years. But
what? Okay, never mind. We'll talk about it later.
And so imagine like a stack of papers. Your soul is the very first page. It's at the very bottom of it all. And if you think about it, it's actually that one sheet that's supporting the rest of the shit. Now, there's some people where like you could feel like you're lost, and without your soul. Mm-hmm. But it's what it really is it's like all of these other distractions on top of it. So like, you know, like, okay, like I'm lonely, I'm depressed, I'm not doing this with my life, I can't accomplish my goals, I can't accomplish my dreams, I don't have a good relationship with my family, like my friendships are falling apart, like there's like all this like negative shit, like I'm sick, I can't sleep, you know, like all that shit of life gets like piled on top of it. And in order to get back to your soul, you got to like address like what's on the top most sheet. You couldn't necessarily like switch and like Jenga all the shit out from the bottom.
You made Jenga a verb now.
Yeah, so it's a Jenga and Shang sung it. But when you, at least I think like comedy, I put that as the bottom one because no matter what else happens, like that I think is like at least the core, like that spark of divinity, you know, to without sounding too pretentious, like, oh yeah, you're making jokes about, you know, like about tits and all this shit, and you know, like how is that divine? But that's the ultimate thing that I guess connects me to others. And despite all the other shit that I've experienced in life, you know, even like if I go to bed like angry about something at night, and my fucking soul, that is when I'm feel at my most, you know, by myself. And I researched, well, years ago, I researched a comedian by the name of Patrice O'Neill, and I recently wrote a long article about him, like about during Black History Month to close out the month. And his journey of his soul came through when he learned the difference between being funny and comedy. Funny is interpersonal. Comedy is a business. So in this case, you know, he was always the funniest guy in the room, but there would be times in his life he thought he was compromising his soul. Yeah. So like in the Aspen Comedy Tour of 1998, he said himself that like he was trying to tap dance to get something out of what he was doing. Like he felt like he was compromising part of his soul in order to get, you know, money, in order to get ahead. And then like he had this real profound moment when he went back to Los Angeles. He was on his hotel bed laying down, and then he had 2 Whoppers with cheese on his stomach and he was miserable. And like that's all he could afford. And he said that if he had a gun, he would have shot himself. And like from that moment on, he decided to just be completely honest with himself, and that was the only way to really feel fulfilled. And there was a lot of other people in the business that he noticed that he would call hack comedians. So, you know, a hack comedian is a comedian who's not necessarily playing what they're feeling. They're gauging what the crowd wants.
So like being a sellout, just giving the people what they want rather than speaking to your truth. Yeah.
So like Patrice had this quote that he actually told Dane Cook, and because they kind of came up at the same time. They were like both Boston comics, and he said, like, I can't remember the quote verbatim, but it's pretty much like, you know, you can't fuck with the truth. If you can find your own truth, even if it means revealing horrible parts of yourself, then you can be present. It's all about being present. So when you have, you know, certain people who compromise parts of their soul to get an item or an object, that's when they kind of feel the most dead. Yeah. So at Patrice O'Neill, at least, you know, you have this, the industry of comedy really sucks out the essence of a lot of people's like freedom and individuality. Now there's people who are successful and they're able to kind of cultivate their own audience, but once you get to like the very top of the mainstream, once they compromise just when they deviate just a little bit from what made them famous initially, and they like start to speak some of their own truth, they're completely destroyed. Yeah. At least like with me, like it's kind of like that with Patrice, because no matter what is like, you know, like the comedy, like that's how I connect to the people and the things that I love is comedy. So like that's part of my soul. And I think like the soul is like, if you were to just take out all the people, like all of the essences of people, and you were to just like find that one thing, kind of like if you were to just take like, okay, like the 70s were rebellious and that's the soul of the 70s. But I think the soul of people is just to try to find a way to connect with one another. And then that's like kind of through some sort of divine, not like, okay, God put us here divine, or, you know, like God righteous, but something that's like something bigger than we could ever imagine, like divine. Yeah.
Well, and it's like the reason that we connect to each other that way is because like it's the one thing that really connects all people, because, you know, even siblings who grew up in the same household don't have the same experiences. Every person is unique, but what connects us are these like big existential, I guess, and it's hard too, because like part of like, I guess who I am is like, I am a person who in the past like couple years has come into like acknowledging that like I have a soul and that like there's something that connects all people like together. I have a part of me that's like, you are a fucking hippie crackpot. What are you smoking? I have like this rationalist kind of pragmatist side that's like, what the fuck are you smoking? Like, why do you fucking care? That like, why are you spending so much time and effort and thought on this like intangible thing that we can't even prove is true? And I think that I have a lot of like, I definitely have like that self-critic and like that like judge, like I totally like internalized judgment about like, why the fuck do you care what the soul is? Like, why the fuck do you know, why are you spending your time like talking about these deep, what you think are deep issues in people when there's like people starving outside and, you know, climate change is occurring and all this shit is happening. Like, so I think that those are valid like thoughts and criticisms, because sometimes people get so focused on the internal that they forget about the external, and that like sometimes you're so focused inward on your soul that you forget to connect to other people's souls. And like, I think the easiest way, because so in terms of like using the Patrice O'Neill example where he said like funny is interpersonal, but comedy is business. Where does art lie within that? Because I think that like where you said like your page one is like being a comedian. I think my page one is like just being an artist. And that sounds weird for anyone who like maybe knows me, because they'd probably look at me and be like, well, what kind of artistry do you make? Like the entire time I've known you, like what have you done? And it's not really like, I mean, obviously there's things coming out and like things are in the works. And like, I think this podcast is probably one of the biggest pieces of art that I've done. Of course, I've made visual pieces before, and when I was like born, I like wanted to be a dancer, and then that morphed into wanting to be a violinist, which morphed into wanting to be an actress, which morphed into wanting to be a musician again, which morphed into wanting to be a chef, which morphed into like all these things like have always been like a part of me. And like through like my own kind of self-examination and talking it through with other people, like I can't deny that that's part of me. And I also don't think it'd be right to put like, if I were to say, well, like you Gabi, you can't be an artist because you haven't made X, Y, or Z, I think that would just be like being too critical and harsh on it. So in that, because I think that like I have that like first layer of like artist, I feel like art is a way that we connect with people. Same with how comedy is an art that we connect over. So like, what's the place of like art in connecting to people? Because again, you said like there's a difference between funny, which is interpersonal, and comedy, which is a business. And some would argue music is a business, acting is a business, like, which they are. So like, I don't know, like I'm just trying to parse through like.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I don't necessarily have a direct answer to, but I can at least try to figure it out with you right now. With artists, at least my definition is you're using something internally to make something else externally.
Okay.
That is also shared amongst people. So the fact that you haven't released an album yet doesn't mean you're any less of an artist. It just means that you're not yet an accomplished one.
Or it's kind of like you have the internal qualities, you just haven't made something externally for people to like engage or share in, right? Yeah.
So like what separates artists from non-artists, I would say, is like the non-artists view, I guess, life through a more practical lens. Mm-hmm. Like they see like the uses in tools, and they see like the purpose of things. Like
you like boiling it down to utility, right?
Yeah. So like let's just say that you have like that person at work. They're so obsessed with the job, or that they care about that, and they don't really like, they'll watch movies, but they're more into like seeing the practicality of things. But I think with artists, they see a purpose greater beyond like, what does this mean to life, mm-hmm. as opposed to like, what does it mean like for this use right here, right now? Because, you know, art transcends time.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like a non-artist, it's pretty much like as of for the now, you know, how is this going to be useful within the next 10 or 15 years? Whereas mm-hmm. the best art, there's priceless pieces that are like hundreds, sometimes thousands of years old. that extract the essence of humanity onto one physical, tangible thing.
Yeah.
You know, and the same thing with music. Like what we're really doing with music is we're just laying out like the harmonious emotional feeling. Mm-hmm. So I think when artists can't or don't create, it fucking kills them.
Yeah.
Like they just completely wither away. Mm-hmm. So, you know, especially like with creative people, I think creativity and artistry are like, creativity is like the spark, whereas artistry is like the vehicle. Mm-hmm. So it's like when you start a car, you kind of need the key to turn the ignition.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like if you have to go from point A to point B, if you're an artist and you don't feel creative, you can't get your fucking car to start. Mm-hmm. So what do? You either stay in the car until like the weather blows over and it's safe to get out, or you just go and you put the car in neutral and you just somehow push it through like all the bullshit until hopefully one day something is released. So,
or like finding the gas to put like in the engine. Yeah. Finding that key that to just like kickstart it.
I see this all the time, man. I see it like at my warehouse job. I've come across like one, like I'll give 2 examples. There's one guy who was one of like the best fucking freestyle people I have ever just like just seen in person. Like the riffs he would just come up with off the top of his head. We call like when we leave early, it's called VTO. It's probably across the board with other jobs, like voluntary time off.
Yeah.
And he just on the spot made this fucking rap about VTOing, and it was just like, I kind of wanted to just pull him aside eventually, and I actually did. I ran into him at the mall randomly.
Cool.
I'm like, dude, you better not let me catch you back at the fucking warehouse in a few years, man. Like, you gotta nurse that shit. And the guy, he was miserable. And like, you know, because like he just wanted to fucking, he didn't know that he wanted to do that. It's just that, you know, you get so caught up with like the routine and like, you know, he's like, okay, yeah, this is cool. This is a way for me to make money, but I can't really justify this. There's another guy like the other day even. He came up to the desk and I was checking out like his packages and stuff that he brought back, and I was just like, hey, look, this is a weird question, man. Can I ask you something? Did you ever like want to like do comedy or something like in the industry? And like he was like, yeah, I was thinking about even going to Second City and taking stand-up classes. I'm like, dude, like you just have this like instant rapport with people. Like I can't describe it. You're like a very young Dave Chappelle, like in terms of like your charisma. And it's just like, dude, don't let this fucking warehouse take your soul away.
Okay, so like kind of what we're getting at is like there's certain actions that we do to like nurture and like nourish our souls and like connect to that part of ourself that is like always been there and like that we've had to like realize like yeah, so like, and I think too like the easiest way for people to connect to their souls is probably just like, again, like thinking, like maybe you meditate, maybe you do some yoga, maybe you journal, but you get to this space of like remembering. I guess maybe this is where I get kind of like Socratic or Platonic, is like you get to this space where you remember like what you are. And like, this is so like Lion King, like Simba, remember who you are. But like, I don't mean just like King of Pride Rock. Was that what it was called in Pride Rock? Was that the...
I haven't seen The Lion King in over 20 years.
So my soul is telling me to tell you to get the fuck out. But I guess we should finish the fucking episode first. But, you know, but okay. Do you know who Simba is? Do you know who?
Oh yeah, I know like Simba,
Mufasa.
Scar, Mufasa, the fucking Timon and Pumbaa. I know that. It's just that I like in terms of like, oh, what was the name of the elephant boneyard they went to?
Oh, well,
I don't
the
know. The
elephant boneyard was a thing, but I'm thinking, so like, you know, the Rock.
Okay.
You know the Rock formation?
Yeah.
I think it's called Pride Rock.
Okay, let's go with it. If you would have
Some
said
Disney fanatic is gonna like freak out.
it's called Shitty Fat Tits Rock, I'd be like, you know, let's go with it. I remember calling it, but let's just say.
Yeah. Okay. So, but like, you know, you get to, I think you just have to remember like, what were the things that you loved and freaked out about as kids and like really tried to like, what were you like super into that you spent time like practicing or thinking about or dreaming about doing? Like that totally, I think, is how people start that process. This is a really weird question. do you know, or do you struggle to know what the souls of people around you are? Like, for example, I just had a moment where I was like, what is like my mom's like soul? Like, what is her thing? And like, did she ever sacrifice her soul to like be a mom, or was that always a part of her? Because like, I think when I was like trying to parse through the parts of like my soul, there is a part of me that's like a nurturer and a caregiver, but I don't think that 100% translates into being a mom or wanting to be a mom. Like, I still am in this space of like, I don't know if I'm ever going to have a baby. I don't even know if I ever want to adopt kids. Like, I just don't think that's like, I don't know, that's just not a part of me. But maybe my mom was like, I always wanted to be a mom. Or maybe my mom was like, I'm a caregiver and nurturer, but I mostly wanted to be, I don't know. I don't even know. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever thought about, like, what are your parents' souls?
I think mom's a job, but those qualities of caregiver and nurturer, that's on her resume. So I think a soul,
like under mom,
your soul is like your existential resume of like the best qualities.
Good. That's so good. It is an existential resume.
So like, I mean, like my soul isn't to be a comedian per se.
Yeah.
My soul is to just be funny. Like, that goes on the resume. Like, that gets you any job of being funny, or of being a comedian or acting or any of that shit. Is if you're really fucking funny, you need that quality in order to get that job. So like with my soul, like on my resume, that's just the best thing that I am good at. And I think I'm able to see essences from certain people. I've seen it both ways. I've seen them so strong that, you know, despite, you know, what it is, or what the shit they're going through, they just let life completely destroy them.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. There's this one student I'm working with now. Every Saturday, she comes in at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we work, and she brings in her homework, and we work on it, and she's in her early 20s. She didn't tell me what legal trouble she got into, but she's definitely on probation for something, and she has to do community service work. I don't ask, but, you know.
Yeah, of course.
She's still a really nice person. She can barely read and write.
Wow.
So, and she's in like the intro level of like English classes, and she's dyslexic as well.
Oh God. Wow. That's a lot of hurdles.
So most of the time, when she flows ideas out, you know, you just read it, and like, honestly, most of the time I can't even read what she writes because it's like either misspelled or like, you know, it's just like, so like it's just a jumbled mess.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, she just says like, okay, I'm going to take this like one day at a time. I'm gonna just, you know, if I don't even pass this class, I'm going to get through this, and I'm just going to take this as a learning experience. So that's just like,
that's such a good attitude.
that's fucking, I don't even have that. I'm just like, if it doesn't work for me in 3 weeks, fuck it, I'm done with it. But
I definitely have parts of myself that I'm like, oh, it didn't happen immediately. Fuck that. Like, I feel that with music, for example. Like, I get in a rut with like guitar where I'm like, I fucking suck, and like I don't think it's ever gonna happen, but that's dumb. You can't do that.
Yeah, so playing the guitar, being a musician, that's your job. But the fact that, you know, you want to create music and you have that adaptability, that's on your resume. So I know I have seen people's souls being eaten alive by their circumstances, and it's a really terrible thing to see. And they like kind of lean more towards malevolence and negativity, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But it gets to the point where that shit becomes so harmful. I can't be exactly who I want to be with that in my life. So you have to let that shit go.
That's so true.
So everybody has that. I mean, some of it comes down to choice. Some of it comes down to circumstances, but you could just tell that like there is that spark within every single person.
Yeah.
And not to say that everybody's special, everybody has that ability, and they just don't. Some people live so long before seeing what the fuck that is. And it's not just with artists. Part of me wants to blame society, but that's just how the way I see society now is just a way to make things work. You know, it's just like society is this thing that we have to have traffic lights, we have to have lanes, we have to have white lines painted on the road so we know like how, you know, okay, can we pass up vehicles on this? Like, we need this shit to make things work. It would just be a big fucking chaotic mess.
Yeah. But it's also like you're getting at, like, there's times and spaces where people cannot, because of their circumstances, like actualize their soul, and don't have the time to nurture. And like that's where I like look at my parents and I'm like, is this part of your soul? I guess like my dad has said he knew from the time he was born he was gonna be a dad. Like he knew he wanted to have kids, but like that's so funny. My dad just texted me. That's weird. But like, it's this weird level of like, was your like soul crushed by the fact that you like had to be a parent? There's people probably out there who are like, oh man, if I didn't have a kid, I would have done XYZ. Yeah. And that's like fucking soul crushing.
And there's people who end up having kids who didn't want kids and they're still good at the job.
Yeah. But where's the time to like be an artist? And like, there's women like Karen O I look up to who like had a really established career as a musician and as an artist. And then she chose to have a son. And like, I kind of think that's my working model because like, I don't think my artistry will disappear, right? It'll just always, my artist soul will always be my artist soul. But when you got other shit going on, like keeping it like another human alive and like nurturing it, that's maybe where like the artist part doesn't go away, but the caregiver really steps up. But you have to find time eventually to feed not the teacher self, although that is, I think, maybe a part of me too. But like feeding the artist self. Yeah.
It makes sense. So, fuck. I think within my age, my 30s, even though I'm going to be 32 in a little bit. But the fact that I'm only 2 years in my 30s and the fact that these past 2 years have been a lot more transformative than like my entire 20s. And the fact that I'm trying to break away from the shit that I did in my 20s and like really like overcome that and try to learn to become the person that I want to try to be. Yeah. To be the person that it feels the most comfortable saying I am that person instead of just saying like, in terms of being funny, I'm also good at making shit sound good. Mm-hmm. But I have to kind of bridge the gap between making shit sound good and making things like, and saying those good things that are also true as opposed to just saying the good things in the moment. Because I've always had that way with words and, just over time I've kind of gotten better. I still, I still like, beating your face with a cock and balls. Like I'm still, like, that's still part of me. But, like I'm always able to like find like the feeling that like I'm trying to convey to other people. And I find like the best thing I can do is like do that through comedy. So no matter what happens, your soul is always going to be a part of you. It's just that it's not always going to have that opportunity. Like you might not always have that key in your hand. Yeah. You might not always be able to start the ignition. Yeah. But if you do have the key in the ignition and you got the fucking vehicle, holy shit, dude. Like you feel like that's when you really lose track of time. Yeah. And I think like your soul is also like everything else is so fucking timed. Mm-hmm. Like every other aspect. Like, okay, you go to work, you work 9 to 5. Yeah. You fucking get this, okay, you're in your mid 20s. You have to have this by your mid 20s or 30. You have to like, we have like day and night. It's fucking daylight savings time. Yeah. We're playing with the clocks. Yeah. But when you're really acting on what you are meant to do with your soul, that's when like time has zero and all of the meaning at once. Yeah. To where you're not even conscious of it. And it goes beyond like doing drugs and any of that shit or, and it really varies by other people. Like some people, they love to cut hair. Some people, they love to, be a caregiver. Some people, they love to like they're so meticulous on like the smallest details. Nobody like notices. Like they're able to see like, okay, like in the acoustic foam on our walls, they're able to count out maybe there's like 15 panels of them and like they're perfectly like 12 by 12 square inches and like all that, like all that shit is just crazy. But that's like what they're fucking meant to be. So, once you put a price on your soul, that's when you lose everything. Yeah, and I totally agree. And it's like once your soul and your talent and your like essence is like commodified, it's like really that's like soul crushing. That's totally like it's no longer your soul. It's a means to make money and support yourself. And like I think that's one big trap that people might fall in is like trying to commodify their soul and like make money off of it. But ultimately like that's a trap because
You know, it doesn't feel, even like when musicians, artists, the trap is people want to commodify their souls and they want to like capitalize on their talents and like, but the problem is like, especially with things like art and comedy and like that, when that becomes your whole life, like it kind of loses some of its magic. And I do think too, like, there is like beauty and like amazingness within struggle, like not to glamorize struggle, but like many people will say like, oh man, the moments that I really look back on were when we were like, you know, hustling so hard to like get our band off the ground or get my comedy act off the ground or like make my art scene. Like I was just hustling and I was struggling and blah, blah, blah. And like, then they're like, then once they get it, it's like, easier, but then everyone's like, okay, what's next from you? And like your whole being is now like, your whole worth is then like the art you're creating or like what you're putting out. And it's all like the things that you put out as a part of your soul is all that matters rather than it just being like your soul. And like, again, too, when like one part of the soul gets commodified, what about the other parts? Like if I just did like my artistry and like focused on that, well, when would I have time to be like a nurturing, caregiving person? And like, there's a part of me that's really invested in like social benefits and like helping society through being an educator. And then there's also parts of like, you know, the parts of me that are like spiritual, but then there's also the parts of me that are like really rationalist. And then there's like the self-critic, like all these things like that we kind of have to like foster and develop and like make space for in our lives, or at least have the time to like wipe the slate clean at times where then you can let those parts of your soul come out. And, you know, it's almost like, I feel like I'm kind of describing it almost like a, like multiple personalities thing. You know what I mean? But I don't think it's not really like that because I think they're interrelated most of the time.
They are. It all starts with the base though.
Yeah.
Like that's what I think.
All about the base,
like it
no
all
trouble.
Way back in time, like back in the 90s. Like this.
It's like ages ago.
Yeah.
In the 90s.
It had to start somewhere. And like you bring up a very valid point of like, okay, like if you just made music, but you're still like you're still a caregiver, you're still a educator, you're still all these other things. All that connects to how you feel about yourself as an artist.
Yeah, definitely.
At least like that's just like how I see it. Like no matter what, like you can still, and you couldn't be like, okay, like I feel like I'm the best like teacher and I feel like I'm the best. However, there's something missing with my life because I'm not creating my art.
Yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell from the past like 2 years of like 2 to 3 years of like, hey, this is really great, but also what about this that you never like have been able to make space for?
Yeah,
time to make space for it now.
I remember we had a conversation damn long time ago, back in the late 2000s, back in the writing center days. No, back in the late 2010s, so just last year. But basically, like, you know, when we were talking about being a teacher, you know, I said that's what you do. That's not who you are.
Yeah, no, and that was like a moment of like, and I've thought about that too, about like, because I'm like, I have these parts of myself that are like nurturing and caregiving and also invested in like wanting to make the world a better place when I leave it. Like that totally informed my decision to, and also being an artist because I love literature and poetry, like that totally informed my, like all those three things informed the decision to become a teacher, like 100%. So, but the problem is that like, that's what I do. Like you said, that's what I do. It's how I make my living. And then there's the other stuff that are like really like the really juicy, amazing parts of life. Like I think there's a reason that there's a genre called soul. You know what I mean? Because, and like, there's just like, when you listen to soul, isn't there just like a part of you that like sings like internally? If not with me, it totally happens. And like, there's a reason that is like a thing.
I know of the genre and I've listened to it. I don't think Lady Gaga's soul though.
She has like soul influence. Like I'm talking like Aretha Franklin and like, I don't know, lots of Motown and like, I don't know, like I guess Motown's more R&B. I don't know. But like there are people who actually like kind of encapsulate parts of their like soul and experience and like put them out in products, like in comedy, in music, in film, like, you know, it's like how like art reflects life, man, you know?
Or does life reflect art?
That's a topic for another time.
Yeah. But no, I see what you're saying about that, because at least like with soul music, they're just being very fucking real, and they're being very good at being artists about being real.
Yeah, it's the same with like the I kind of think that like soul, like the human aspect is missing from pop music nowadays, but I still feel like the soul connection in like certain like contemporary R&B and like even the metal scene and the punk scene that is really kind of like small now. It's not like the norm. It's not popular. Like I still think there's like deep places where people, you know, blues too, like where people like take the parts of themselves and put them out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the music, I'm not going to shit on it too much because the mainstream gets the most press. There's still a lot of great artists and a lot of great just music. It's just you probably won't find it as easily accessible on the radio as you would, you know, Justin Bieber, 5 Seconds of Summer, like Ariana Grande, Katy Perry. Like you won't, like that's the shit that's advertised. That's the comedy, but the funny is in somewhere else. Like
it's the business side. It's just like the you know, but it's not like the deep like soul connective, like, yeah, that shit.
Well, there's some song. I mean, you can analyze certain songs to that extent. It's just that it's put forth in a package that is the most easily consumable.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, Thank You Next by Ariana Grande. If you really listen to that song,
that song has some soul to it, though.
Yeah.
Like, there's definitely pop songs that have soul. But I don't think it's the norm. Like, example, like, maybe I'm just not well versed, but like Trippie Redd and Juice WRLD and Travis Scott, I fail to see the soul in their music.
It's emo hip hop now. That's the most popular. And like, just like, they're all like rap and hip hop is what emo was in like the 2000s. So it's like, imagine like if My Chemical Romance
don't even make the comparison.
Did rap.
Yeah, like, but like sometimes, but there's still like the ones, like there's the tracks, like Post Malone's huge and he's like a total emo rapper. And even Drake has like emo rap songs. I did a presentation to my kids. I was modeling how to give a presentation, and the topic I chose was that Post Malone is an emo rapper, because they were like really upset that I called him an emo rapper. It was really funny. But in my opinion, they didn't really think it was funny, probably. But like, I do agree, like that's super. But like, even like the commodification of emo, which was supposed to be born out of this deep, dark place, all of that, when it gets like sellable, it totally loses something. Whenever our souls are commodified, it loses something.
Yeah, but we're able to recognize that meaning right away. So that's why like some of these songs, artists, genres are so popular, is because, see, with fame and fortune and all that shit, like, people help create that for other people. It's not like but like there's like 5 people buying Juice WRLD shit.
Yeah. It's
just that he's being marketed and he's like this massive money wasting machine where they're putting tens of billions of dollars into this guy and be marketed and no one's buying his shit. Like that doesn't exist. Yeah. Like the reason why Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Juice WRLD, Drake are as successful as they are is because people buy their shit. And that's not to say like, but there's something within that music that is still connecting with people on a general level. Yeah. So perhaps it might not be as deep if you were to compare it to like, you know, artists of, you know, the past, like Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix and like Led Zeppelin. Like that's just like during that time. But like at least now the music that comes out, you know, I'm all for like new music and like, yeah, sometimes the shit just sounds bad and I just don't understand it. But the music now is not for me. It's for the next generation. So like I already had my generation of music. Like I already had like my shit, and I feel so nostalgic for 90s music. But if I were to objectively listen to some of it, some of it sounds like shit. Yeah. But then like, yeah, you have the great stuff about the 90s, but you have the great stuff about now. But it's now it's cool to shit on like current music, but it's just not for me. So I think like when like the youth have something that is theirs. That's when they're able, like, they're still working out the same emotions that were worked out decades ago.
Yeah.
Like Percy Sledge, like when a man loves a woman.
Yeah.
It's still the same. I mean, okay, that's one of my all-time favorite fucking songs. Like, when a man loves a woman. Like, you know, like, you just listen to that shit. Like, when I'm feeling, like, when I'm in a sappy-ass fucking mood, I listen to that shit.
Yeah.
When you're in a sappy-ass mood now, you'll probably listen to Drake. You'll probably listen to Ed Sheeran.
Yeah. So maybe it's just like, so maybe it's all just, like, soul is, like, really reflective of, like, the time sometimes.
Yeah.
But I still, and again, maybe I'm just being a crotchety old lady, but it's like, I don't get, and again, maybe it's not meant for me, but like, I don't see the soul. And like, I think that part of the digital era has been like erasing of the soul because there's just so few authentic human interactions that people allow themselves to have. There's these experiences that require you, these human interactions that require you to not be plugged in to your phone and to be plugged into the people around you and be plugged into human interaction and really have those moments where we can see each other's souls and connect.
I still believe that's out there, you know, even with like the youngest kids, like the 18-year-olds, like, yeah, there's certain times in like school where like they're always connected to the phone, but I just think it's like imagine like being shit on for being distracted with the phone and all that stuff. But I think what it all kind of comes down to is that only humans can represent humanity. I think what we're doing right now is like the technology represents the humanity.
Yeah, well, and the pendulum has swung. Like this is probably the maybe it'll get worse. Like who knows? But I think the pendulum has swung like as really as far. It could go a little farther, but like I think that's going to be then we're going to have like a tipping point and go like you said, like rather than letting technology define humanity, humanity will start defining technology, and it'll kind of shift. Because I guess we could also argue that like this like technology overabundance is really in its infancy, and that makes it that like we're still like learning how to use it in a thoughtful, creative manner that doesn't dominate our interactions and ourselves.
I don't think the soul of humanity has ever changed throughout time. I think the advertising of humanity has changed, and I think the values have changed over time.
Oh, that's true.
I think like just like the general soul, like okay, like goodness and love and all the quote unquote like hippy dippy shit. That's always been there. It's just now negativity is the fucking business of the soul. Mm-hmm. So like negativity is comedy. You know, it's not the funny, but like now it's cool to shit on things, and it's cool to be negative, and it's cool to just bitch about like what's going on in this country. Like there's people who have never left anywhere within 20 miles of their suburb, and they're now pundits on the country.
Yeah, no.
You know, but it's just that's just the cool thing now. It's cool to just be like the negative guy on social media. I mean, that's just like how it is now. But like, if like the soul of all that is, you know, just fucking still connecting with people. And that's just like one of the things, like that's, you know, they say, social media, you connect with people. Like you connect to an audience. You don't connect to individual, but there's people that have had experiences like, let's just, especially with like mental illness. Like there's never been such a like gigantic like representation of mental illness, and like there's some people on the internet who have shared like their experiences with depression and PTSD and anxiety and sexual abuse and all that stuff, and like you read their stories, you're like, holy shit, I feel that way. You know, that's one thing, but that's still part of the connection like between it all. You know, and it's just like I don't think I have never met, like, there's very few pro wrestling video game fucking, like, Lady Gaga lovers out there that I'm ever going to really have a genuine connection with. So, like, you know.
Well.
Right. Like, I'm pretty much the only guy I know that's like me. But there's, I mean, without sounding, like, too up my own ass, what I'm saying is I connect with so many different people, and it's not because I'm finding people that are exactly like me. I'm finding people that are pieces of me and parts of me. So there's some people. That's true. Like, you ever just meet someone and not a word is spoken, but you could just feel a silent connection with them. I'm not saying like they're strangers, but I'm just saying that like you don't feel the need to like say words, and you just feel connected.
I think it's rarer now But I know what you're talking about, where like you've met people in the wild.
Yeah.
And like you just, have you ever like locked eyes with somebody and like that's where it happens, where you're just kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like attraction. It's not like
it fucks me up every time.
Yeah, but it's just like all of a sudden it's like boom, I see you, you see me.
Yeah.
No, and it's really beautiful.
Or like there's certain people that you talk to, you're just like, holy fuck, I know I could just love the shit out of this person the way I was meant to love people. And then you never see them. But that's just like, but you just know that and it's still out there. And it's still like, that's like the good shit of humanity. And there's Michael Jacksons and there's R. Kelly's and there's fucking Donald Trump, like all that stupid bullshit that's just out there right now. And it's serious, but we build society on assholes. Like, that's the thing. Like, we build society. The reason why we have hands-free faucets is not because they're better in any means. It's because some asshole left the fucking faucet on the whole time and flooded out the bathroom. And it's happened so many times. We just said, all right, we gotta just fucking have the laser shit so the faucets aren't on. We have barbed wire on fences not to keep out wolves from taking chickens anymore, because assholes jump the fences to steal shit.
Yeah, but even the assholes like have or had souls, and like they've just
yeah, they're assholes.
They're just assholes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Assholes. That's funny.
That's how we construct society, and like just the assholes have ruined it for the rest of us,
But that being said, there is still space and opportunity to connect with people and souls. If you are aware and willing, it's out there. I think like this is going to sound like, I think like the most I've felt that way, and maybe it was because I was at a bar and I was drinking, but like sometimes you're at a bar or like some sort of like social space, and like there's just this energy that you can just like, you could talk to anybody and it's just welcoming. And like you are there and it feels good, and like you can talk to like anyone sitting at the bar, and like your bartender's nice, or like I don't know, like I've seen and felt that. Like I was also drinking alcohol, so not that I like get to go to excess ever really, but that's still a thing. Maybe it was the alcohol, but like like there's definitely times and places where you've just like vibed with somebody and like you just see them and they see you, and it's like, oh, this is so amazing.
Yeah, and there's no greater feeling than like once you really see someone for who they genuinely are, and not like either the facade they put up or all the other like the shit that they do, but like when you just know that like, okay, despite all this shit, this is who they are at the end of the day. There's no greater feeling than that. There's no greater experience than that, because that is so fucking uniquely human.
Totally. I agree 1,000%.
So, however, assholes ruin that for everybody. They become fucking manipulators. They become liars. they become rapists. They just ruin it for everybody. But it's still out there. And I think, at the end of the day, we just want to connect with other people. And, like what's that? The baseline for everybody is just to find a way to perhaps like how to connect with the world. And, it's different for everybody. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But, as artists and creative people, or like whether you're comedy or music or, art or dance or poetry or whatever that shit is, or like, if you're just like a caregiver, you're loving, or you're just really good at like giving honest advice, or you're just really good at like making sure like the people around you feel safe, like that, like that's all great and amazing shit you put on your resume, and I'm overqualified for both jobs I have. Like that's just the truth of it. I mean, that's how all it is for a lot. Pretty much everyone has a college degree right out of college. If they don't find the job that is based in their career, they're overqualified for every fucking job they're gonna get. Yeah. Like there's like master's degree like baristas at Starbucks.
No, for sure.
It's like, what the fuck? But that's not that's their job. That's not the resume.
That's what they do. That's not who they are.
Right. So that's our souls. So when Shang Tsung is taking the soul, he's not taking away the fighter. He's taking away who the fucking fighter is. He's taking away Chan. Chan's Liu Kang's brother's name. Chan Kang. He just took his fucking soul and kept it to himself. And the reason why Shang Tsung did it, because he didn't have a soul for himself. That's why Thanos put like the gauntlets of power. He compromised a piece of his soul every single time. And that guy had so much, like, Gamora was the only person's thing, alien, like whatever you want to call it, that he's ever fucking loved. Mm-hmm. Even though he was just massacring planets, he didn't give a shit. But like he was able to just do that, and he fucking took a little piece of the Tesseract and like all the other jewels, and within the snap of his fingers, he was able to just let all that shit go away. So that's the truth, Ruth, and that's a fact, Jack.
Word. All right. So this was a really thrilling talk about souls. If you'd like to take part in this conversation about souls, you can for sure comment on Facebook at Coffee and Catastrophe. You can tweet at us at CCWBG. What is your soul like, man? What is your soul like, woman? Tell us. Interact with us. You know, we've got to connect to each other's souls in this modern age. That was like the most hippie fucking thing I've said all episode.
Okay, hey, before we close that, stop saying that shit.
Saying what?
This is hippy dippy. Don't discredit anything you say by saying that shit. That's fucking you, man.
It's a part of me. There's also the rationalist. There's also the self-critic part that's like, you know, it is me, but I also know how it sounds.
Yeah, but it's just like, you don't have to discredit. Dude, just let it fucking be, man. Just like that's part of your soul, man. Like no one's gonna judge this shit, and if they do, fuck them. I hate them so much if they do. Just let it be. Just always like, yeah, this is the hippy dippy part. This is the GAB fucking I, dude.
Oh.
You gotta just let that shit be, man. Just like this is the designated spot for you to be yourself. Even though I say that, there's still a lot of shit that I can't say right now. Because I know this is being broadcasted. But I'm just saying, man, at least the hippy dippy shit. that's at least the genuine. That's a piece of yourself.
Yeah, no, it is. It's genuine. It's part of my soul, and I honor it. I also honor the rationalist pragmatist who's like, put a caveat on this, know your audience. Yeah, no, it's not that I like discredit it. I just like know like there's people who are gonna listen to me and be like, well, you're full of shit, and like, yeah, whatever, you can think I'm full of shit, and to an extent I know that what this sounds like, and I think I acknowledge that when I say that. So I mean, I totally get where you're coming from, though.
I hate them so much.
You don't have to hate them. That's okay. You don't have to hate them. It's all right. Okay, so yeah, like us on Facebook at Coffee and Catastrophe, tweet at us at CCWBG. You can like and subscribe and leave a review on iTunes and Stitcher and Castbox, all that shit. Let us know about your souls, man.
Thank you. Take care of yourselves and be good to each other. And sweat's kind of hot.
What?